Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So on today's video I am currently sat in my new VW Tiguan R-Line. This is the 2 litre TDI version and it's a really nice car. I've just recently bought it. So my reasoning for buying this is to replace the van and the Audi that I previously had and sort of consolidate those two into one vehicle that will do everything, or that's the plan anyway. Unfortunately, this obviously doesn't do everything the van would do just yet, so I've got to do some adaptations to it to do that. So make sure you stick around to see all the things that I get up to try and make this as good as having my van. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. I guess first things first, I'm going to fit the tow bar that I bought. So this is obviously the tow bar itself, that's the main structure of the tow bar. I've got it as a detachable one. Now this is quite neat. I don't know if anyone's seen these before, but in the UK this is our sort of detachable tow bar style. So the way you remove these is you push this blue knob down and then you twist it. It's quite stiff. You twist it, which basically that's also preloaded there now to reassemble it, and then you put it in and it's not quite right. But what you have to do is push on that and it locks itself in automatically. Basically this little pin here, as you can probably see there, that little pin there knocks a pin out here. So that locks it in place there, up on the inside of this block here. It's quite a nice design and it sort of will hopefully keep the back of my vehicle looking smart whilst also not banging my shins on a tow bar all the time. Along with the tow bar, however, I've bought this OEM style wiring kit. So this will wire directly into the fuse box. So it's quite a big job to do this because you've got to run it all the way down the car and to the front of the car. But it means that I'll have 12-volt charging on the trailer if I need it in the future. Having full sort of light package, including reverse light, which is something you don't get if you only have a 7-pin socket over here. But let's go and get on with it. I start out by just popping the blue plugs out of the back of the lights, and then we can take the lights out. Every light has a bit of a different way to get them out, but they also seem to retain themselves, so you've got to be really careful not to drop it. Now that the lights are out, I can start undoing the torque screws around the wheel arch liner, and this will allow me to pull the plastic trim around the wheel off, and then I can get to all the bolts on the bumper. There's a load of clips as well on this trim, as well as all the screws, and as I found, a couple of them broke. You can see one of them there. It's quite irritating really, and it's a bit of a rubbish design. Now, as uncouth as it sounds, you literally have to kind of peel the bumper off of this trim that holds it in place. It's like loads of little latch systems that hold it all the way around in place. But it's quite nerve-wracking for someone that hasn't done this before on these, trying not to break the bumper. I'm just trying to disconnect the wires for the rear parking sensors. On a lot of small vehicles you have to remove this crash bar to be able to fit the tow bar, but unfortunately if you do have a rear end accident or someone rear ends you, the tow bar ends up taking the brunt of it, but because it's a lot stronger than the crash bar, it ends up transferring through the back of the vehicle, which can do a lot of damage to the back of the vehicle. Genuinely at this point I thought it was all going so swimmingly, and how wrong was I? Because now this side was the bane of my life. bearing in mind it was winter at this point. I think it was January of this year, 2025, and it was obviously wet. As you can see, it was really cold, and I was getting wet from sitting on the floor, or even I was sat on like a cushion, but I was still getting wet. And then I realised I had to drop down the AdBlue tank, and you can't see any of the bolts easily from the floor, especially the back one. It was like trying to feel by braille. It was very difficult, and I had to try and lower it down just enough that I could get a spanner in there and try and put the bolts in for this bar. With the tank still supported with my jack, I'm now fitting the crossbar, which is what replaces the crash bar essentially, and you do have some little spacers that go in, so everything's still loose, so I can fit all the bolts in and make sure it all lines up. And then once everything's in place, we can tighten it all down.
Nice.
Now the tow bar's in place and bolted up, I needed to run the wiring before I could put the bumper back on. So I started out by taking the wheel out and the liner for the wheel. And now this is the cover. There's loads of little screws all the way around it, as you can see. And we take this off so we can get to the grommet that is very kindly placed behind by VW. This 13-pin wiring kit I got was actually quite neat. It had an end on it that I hadn't seen before, and the end actually fits through this hole. So it was really well designed, I thought, and it definitely saved and sped up sort of the time to fit this all. So I've run the cable underneath here and cable tied it all up. I've got it up to the front here now. So all I need to do now is get this in there and cable tie it all together. This definitely seems like it's much easier than it is, but putting this all together is quite the task, and it definitely takes a lot of patience because there is so many nuts and bolts, and trying to remember where everything went because some of them are different. It wasn't the worst job in the world by any respect, but the wiring then wasn't an easy job after this. I found this interesting, but the bit that goes inside the wheel is a subwoofer, and I don't think they're all spec'd with it. But then also this has a dual height floor, and as you can see it's in the lower height there, but it can sit in the higher height on those little blocks at the back. I don't know if you noticed them. So we're just in the wheel well here, and this is one of the wires from the BCM. So we need to unwire pin 58 here, and we're going to connect a new wire into 58. I'm not quite sure what possessed me to do this so late, but for some reason I decided to do this at about 6 or 7 p.m. and it was obviously pitch black. It was the middle of winter, as I said earlier, and I was so cold. You can hear me sniffling, and I was like really struggling because of freezing. So basically what I've done here is I've had to unpin the signal wires, the high-low CAN lines from the BCM, and I reconnect them to the CAN lines that go to the back control unit in the back of the car that I just put in, and hopefully this should then send signal sort of to and from between the two boxes. So I've only had to do 3 wires. It wasn't that complicated. I think it puts a lot of people off doing this, but it's actually quite a simple job. It's just sort of, I think, being slightly confident in yourself that you know what you're doing. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So this week I was actually doing something similar to this at work all week on my truck. So I'm quite well versed now with doing stuff like this. This is a lot easier than what I was doing though, so sort of just a bit fiddly because it's not much room. But yeah, so these are flush cutting cable tie cutters from knipex. If anyone wants them, that's the number there, 7201160. I hate leaving sharp cable tie ends everywhere because I always cut my hands on them. Right, we'll just cable tie this one up. So the last thing to do now is to literally just put these 3 wires into here. Now again, this is something I've done at work which is similar, same sort of terminals, but there were spots in a fuse blocks where there's blanks. So for example, like some of these have a feed to them but nothing coming out of them, so they'll have the power to them. So the ones that I need have all got power to them but they've got nothing coming back out of them. So obviously I can then plug these into the other side of it, because obviously there's 2 sides to a spade terminal, if that makes sense. So these go in there and they just literally will clip in, so it's really straightforward. The only thing that's hard is that you can't see, or I can't see very easily. So I'll just get this done quickly. I'll clip these 3 things in. So I guess at this point some people are maybe wondering, how is a car going to replace a van? And I've got the answer for you. This is my new Ivor Williams box trailer. Say hello to my little friend!
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
It's got these really neat doors in it, so you can open it up as a barn door, like that. And there's a couple of stays put in. So you can have it like that, or you can have it like that as a ramp door. This would be really handy for me, be able to drive my crawler straight in there, is what I was sort of thinking with it. As I'm sure you're all aware, I'm not going to leave this as standard, so I've got a few things I want to do to it, one of which being take these spacers out from the hitch here. I had to get new bolts because those spacers were like 20 or 25 mil, so the bolts were too long now. So the next job is quite a big one, and it's all these lights that I bought. All of these are LED. They're laser lights. Now I can't find the other one, but I have 2 of those, so I'm going to fit those as well. These are marker lights for the back. New number plate light made by Hella. All very good and very expensive. So let's get these on now. I carefully took all of the lights off of this trailer because they were literally brand new still. I'd only just collected the trailer and then removed everything. And then I resold all of the lights because they were all still in perfect condition. The original lights had these little spacers that went behind them, so I put them back on because the light sits recessed in that gap there. It makes it kind of hard to see from certain angles at the sides if you don't put the spacers back in there. That's one done. Now just to do the other side. There's something so satisfying about seeing lights working after you've wired everything in. I guess it's like probably cavemen seeing fire for the first time. I'm not sure if anyone's seen these before, but this is a nutsert tool, and it essentially just puts a threaded insert in a hole that you can't get a nut on the end of a bolt, for example, or a blind hole I should say. It's definitely really obsessive to do it, but I like having the crosshead on a Phillips or a posi screw to face directly upwards, and then obviously one other line facing horizontal. It's really satisfying for me for some reason, but it's definitely a bit OCD. The last lighting thing to do is fit some reverse lights, or some decent reverse lights. So I think I'm going to use these laser lights that I've got and put them something like that. The last thing I've got to fit now is these prop legs. It will stop the trailer from falling over backwards as I load it, or even like wanting to lift my car off the ground, depending on what I sort of drive in there. So I got this kit directly from Mike Williams, so let's fit it. As you can probably see, this is such a fiddly job trying to make sure it all stays in place while you try and put the bolts on, whilst you also can't see what you're doing. So I guess the final thing I want to do to this is change the oil on the Haldex unit. Now the Haldex unit on a VW is the, oh, it's really echoing next to the exhaust. The Haldex unit is the 4-wheel drive module at the back, basically like the diff at the back. And you need to have it on level surface. Well, I don't have a ramp, so I put it on some blocks. And luckily I'm quite skinny, so I can crawl underneath it. So what I've done to start with is remove, this is the fill hole, hopefully no oil will come out. That's it, that's the fill plug. Move that out of the way so I don't lose it. And then the drain plug is that one there, which is an 8mm. And I need to try and, is it that way or is it that way? That one was pulled down. That one's pulled out. Right, that's that. So part of the service for these involves taking the pump off here as well and cleaning the pump out. So that's what I'm going to do after this as well. That actually looks really good. So I'm just trying to remove the plug, which is probably not as bad if you're not laid and cramped under a car like a little T-Rex. I cannot begin to tell you how awkward this is to do on the floor, but I refuse to pay someone to do something that I can do. Right, there we go. Okay, now we can take the pump out. Oops. Quite a few chunky bits in there, that's not good. Right, let's take that out. Fucking hell. Why is everything so difficult? I read that you need to clean inside the hole as well. I don't know if you can see it. You can see it better than I can. So normally what people do with these is they just take, oh look, it's a bit jelly-like on the end there. They just take the filter screen off. But I did read somewhere that someone said take the pump apart and clean it because there'll be a load of crap in the pump. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. I'll just start by cleaning this screen. So I'll take this off. Got these little, oh look at that, oh sludgy. My car has got 40,000 miles on it, or 47,000. I can't remember when you're meant to service them. I think it was about 40, so it's a little bit overdue. I don't know if it's ever done before though. But right. That's good now. So I've got the pump all back together. I just need to switch these two O-rings over. I'll put a little ring of oil around it and then I'll pop it in. But first we're going to go and clean the hole that it receives into. I'm going to, after that drip, refit the drain plug. I thought you could change the washer on it from what I saw, like the picture online, but you can't. So hopefully it doesn't leak, but if it does, I will just drain it and refill it again. It wasn't a lot of money. Okay, last thing to do is clean all that crap out of the bottom of the hole there. The kit I bought came with this little syringe, so I'm just going to siphon some out of this. I feel like I'm going to be here a while, so I'll get this done until it drips out, and then I think I need to cycle the pump on the computer, and then we should be done. So that brings us to the end of another video. I couldn't be happier with how this car's turned out. I was a bit dubious about changing from 2 vehicles to 1, but it's worked out really well. And having my new trailer literally is just, it's actually better than having a van for me, because I've got a lot more room to store things. When I want to go like biking or take my ransomes, for example, there's just so much more room in it. And having the ramp as well, it saves having ramps with my van. So everything about this is better, and I'm really pleased that I've done the change to swap from 2 vehicles to 1. So if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.